The Apprentice. Written and read by Ken Johnson. Episode 1. Noise filled the canteen. Knives, forks, spoons, cups and plates were being thrown into dishwashing machines or taken out of them, chinking against each other and being wheeled around the kitchen on trolleys. The loud sizzle of frying breakfasts and the shouts of the arriving day shift ordering food added smells to the noise. Ellis, Professor Ellis, looked as though he was in his mid-50s and was dressed from head to foot in black overalls emblazoned at the sunlight. Escorted by the standard-issue personnel officer and carrying a plate of hot breakfast, the 20-year-old trainee arrived, looking out of place in a charcoal grey suit, Bengal striped shirt and Miro tie. He sat opposite Ellis. The personnel officer said, "Morning, Professor Ellis, this is Theodore Williams," and disappeared. The canteen supervisor had kindly scrawled "reserved" on the Formica tabletop with a marker pen. Ellis was close to finishing his bacon and eggs. The new arrival put his plate on the table and began eating. "Welcome to the works," Ellis began. "I suppose I should begin by apologising for the noise in here, but firstly, it's the only place for several miles in any direction where you can get breakfast without cooking it yourself. And secondly, the noise is so loud that we're unlikely to be overheard." "It's a very good breakfast, sir." "Don't call me sir," said Ellis. "I insist. It's Professor Ellis. Most important things first. Have they offered you a decent salary?" "More than decent, Professor. I was surprised." "Then you'll pay for your own breakfast tomorrow. Bring a credit card or something because they don't understand about money." The professor paused for a second and sighed. How simple life used to be when you carried money around with you and you bought things with it. "So, I'm Professor Ellis and you're Williams. Have I got the right name there?" "Yes, Professor. Theodore Williams. Theodore Williams, BSc, I suppose." "And you're the new hire?" "Yes, Professor." "What in God's name made you want to work for Sunlight? Most of the guys you'll meet today are probably trying to get paroled out of Sunlight." "Someone at Sunlight wrote to the head of the maths department and he recommended me." "Jobs are hard to come by. I want to work for a socially conscientious small business with potential for growth that offers a realistic prospect of my promotion and at the same time respects my interests and abilities and puts them to good use. And of course, Rosentyre is one of the most remote, unspoiled and beautiful places in the whole of Scotland." "I've spoken like a true Dalek. You've spent hours rehearsing that speech, haven't you?" "Yes, Professor. No, Professor. Don't be too modest. You showed imagination, persistence and fortitude. You anticipated a hard question and you prepared for it, and you didn't even have the job when you wrote your answer. Why do you think Sunlight chose you?" "I'd like to pretend that I had no idea to what I owe the honour of being offered the chance to work here, but someone probably noticed that I got a first-class degree in maths. My father went to Chamberlain School, and both my parents voted Conservative." "You're completely right. I wrote to him. Your former headmaster and I were at St. Hubert's University together." Professor Ellis paused and looked serious. "Well, here's your first lesson. Your name is Horatio. Your name is not Williams. As long as you are on Sunlight premises, talking to anyone about Sunlight or speaking to customers on Sunlight business, your name is Horatio. Horatio because it begins with H and the last person we hired got the G. You never use your real name, even if your mother phones you at work. What do you think? May I change the name, Professor? It's a bit 19th century Admiral of the Fleet, isn't it?" I don't know. Have they given you your identity card yet? Yes, Professor. Here, I'm wearing it already. Oh, so you are. Then you can change your name when your card expires, not before. Ellis looked up at the clock. 8:25. You'd best finish your breakfast because we have to go and watch an important event at 8:38, and it's downstairs at the other end of the corridor. While you eat, I'll get the formalities out of the way. You are now a member of staff at Sunlight. This place is governed by the State Secrets Act. You never talk about your work except to people like him over there, wearing Sunlight overalls and with a Sunlight identity card. Who is that over there? Anyone I should try to curry favour with? He's Dr. Paul Eakes, brilliant genetic engineer, developed the Eakes test for some disease or other. But as there are only 8 scientific practitioners in the entire company, including you, you're bound to meet him sooner or later. Panic instability, said Horatio. What? Panic instability. The disease that the Eakes test detects runs in families. Mental illness, rare but crippling. Sandeep Tolhurst suffered from it and ended up, well, you can talk about that to Eakes. But if anyone else asks, Sunlight is a 19th century Quaker business that makes horseshoes, harrows and ploughs. Your job is to put our products into cardboard cartons, carry them to the post office and send them to all those steaming jungles and frozen wastes where the British Empire used to be. What you see and hear and smell and read while you're here stays with you and you alone. No photography. No drawings, no maps, no phones except the one that we issued to you, no using the public internet. Any notes you take stay in this building, and this building does not exist. What? How can our colleagues send us postcards while they're on holiday in Spain in the summer? That's no great problem, said Ellis. They address them to the Sunlight Traditional Farm Implement Company on Oxygen Street, Edinburgh. It's a trap street. Now, back to what matters. Have you had enough to eat? Yes, thank you. Horatio wiped the grease off his lips with a paper napkin, dropped it onto the table, and stood up ready to go. Come with me then. Have you been given an idea of what Sunlight does? No, sir. Ellis glared at him. I mean, no, Professor. Sorry, only that they do advanced. You are forgiven this time. I worked down hard for my title and you will use it. Now, come along. Our demonstration will not wait. We're going downstairs on the double. Ellis and Horatio left the canteen, walked along the corridor of grey walls, roof lights and anonymous brushed steel doors until they reached an electric gate. Specific authorization required for entry. The gate opened ahead of them and closed after them. Down one floor in a lift, then along a corridor was another gate, and this time it didn't open. Who's there? Asked a loudspeaker at head height. Is that you, Gresham? Yes, it's me, Professor. I see you've got someone with you. Horatio. He's the new hire. I've got his authorization. The gate opened. Thanks. Ellis and Horatio walked into a large, low-ceilinged room with powerful forced air ventilation, making a continuous hiss, and half the room freezing cold. There were 6 chairs in a half circle, each placed behind a desk and a screen. 5 of the chairs were occupied by men in black, Sunlight overalls, which made them look like identical quintuplets. The computer displays were more varied than the people in front of the half circle of desks. 2 straight yellow lines were painted on the floor, about 3 feet apart. The yellow lines led from a roll-up door on the left to another roll-up door on the right. Both doors were rolled down, closed. No exit. Are these people clones? Horatio whispered to Ellis. No, of course not. Ellis spoke normally, as though the question was nothing out of the ordinary and everybody asked it sooner or later. He gestured towards the empty chair. "You can have my seat, Horatio. You'll probably need it, and I need the exercise." One of the overalls spoke, with neither emotion nor interest. Horatio thought it was the one on the right, but he wasn't sure. They all looked the same. "Yet 34 and 3 seconds, and all's well." A second overall added in the same flat tone of voice. "Vital signs, heart, respiration, blood pressure, all on target." The first overall spoke to the microphone on his desk. "Send the patient in. Stand away from the yellow lines." Someone said, "Why do you always say that?" "Because it's in the script. Gas masks on." Horatio turned anxiously to the professor. "Where's my gas mask?" "There aren't any. He's having a joke." The left-hand roll-up door lifted, and almost silently, a lidless plywood coffin rolled in, apparently under its own power, between the yellow lines. Inside the coffin lay a man, wearing a hospital gown, skeletally thin, several teeth missing, covered in bruises and bleeding heavily. There was a large and spreading blood stain on the gown. There was blood oozing from his mouth and nose, and some stinking mess on the floor of the coffin. "What the devil happened to him, Professor?" Horatio asked Ellis. "Virus infection." "Are we all going to catch it?" "No, Horatio, don't worry. You can't catch it, and neither can anybody else." The tortured soul in the coffin moaned weakly. "Are we going to cure him?" Horatio asked. Professor Ellis thought about that, and eventually he said, "Yes, in a manner of speaking." First overall spoke to the computer again. "Patient number 122, Avner Gilbert, 48-year-old male." On first overall's desk, the computer started beeping out the heart rate of the patient. First overall spoke to nobody in particular. "When was this guy infected?" "Midnight yesterday, Graham." "Isn't that a bit late to wake the medics up?" "Yes, but it means we don't have to do takeaway sums to work out the time elapsed." "Does anyone want a chip? Are you feeling a bit peckish, Gresham?" One of the overalls was unwrapping the newspaper from a pile of chips. "No thanks, Falstaff. I have to concentrate for the next couple of minutes." "I missed breakfast," Falstaff said another. "I'll take one." "Here, Digger, catch." Falstaff took a chip out of the newspaper and threw it to his hungry colleague. "Thanks. Oh, God, it's got brown sauce on it." "Then you will have to get WFK in to clean the keyboard, Digger, like I do. They're good at it, and it's what we pay them for." "Trust you to." "Who's WFK?" asked Horatio. "We fix keyboards. Little Polish techno shop in the town," Ellis told him. Falstaff announced expressionlessly, "Sorry to interrupt, boys, but it's 8:35 and 5 seconds and the BP is dropping." The pulse beeps stopped for a couple of seconds and resumed. "Heart is slowing," said Falstaff. Digger read out, "Heart 49, pulse intermittent, respiration shallow, BP 60 on 41. A moan came from the plywood coffin. Blood was welling up in the patient's eyes and under his fingernails. "Here's another chip," said Digger. "Sure. Shall I lick the brown sauce off first?" "No, thanks. I can cope with it." "Catch." The chip flew across the room. Digger reached up for it but missed. The chip ricocheted off his fingers and landed in the coffin. The patient did not notice it. "Wide, no ball," cried Ellis, holding his arms out sideways. "Do you want a chip?" "No, thanks. I just had breakfast." Horatio told Professor Ellis that he was feeling a bit queasy. and the professor replied that everybody did the first couple of times they watched it happen, without mentioning what it was. "Are you sure I'm not about to catch whatever he's suffering from?" asked Horatio. "I thought that might be on your mind," said Ellis. "Yes, I am sure. No, you can't catch it. It won't affect you or anyone else." Falstaff spoke. "Sorry, guys, I forgot to watch the clock. It is now 8:37 and 45 seconds. Quiet, please." The room fell silent, apart from the newspaper rustling and Horatio retching and the ventilator hissing and the patient moaning and making a last feeble effort to lie in a comfortable position. "Have this newspaper," said Falstaff, holding it out to Horatio. "Sorry, I've eaten all the chips." Falstaff led the chant, and apart from Horatio, the rest joined in unison. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. "Are you feeling all right?" Ellis asked Horatio. 4, 3, 2. "No, I feel sick." 1. The irregular pulse beat stopped, and a high-pitched continuous note replaced it. 0. Meep. The patient spluttered and fell into an awkward position, his head twisted at an impossible angle, eyes open, tongue lolling out. Apart from Horatio, who was now sitting bent forwards, vomiting into the newspaper in his lap, everyone clapped, cheered, and congratulated each other. "Flatline," said Gresham, raising his voice to be heard over the hubbub. "The patient has flatlined." "Flatline at 8:38 and 0 seconds, said Falstaff. "And now the triumph of British engineering," cried Digger. "Welcome to sunlight, Horatio," said Falstaff, as the roll-up door on the right side opened and the coffin rolled through it out of the room. "Have a nice career."